now move on to the next speaker, Honorable the Leader of the Opposition.
Honourable Speaker, Mr. President and fellow South Africans. In January 2019, a select group of business executives were invited to a dinner on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. At that dinner, the host stood up and described the term in office of South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma as 9 wasted years. And influential people who attended that dinner said that they were impressed with the forthrightness of the comment. According to one attendee, and I quote, "It made me think about how the country had been run in the last years. We lost some of the gains that we had," end quote. And who was the speaker at that dinner? It was none other than President Cyril Ramaphosa talking about the administration of his ANC predecessor. As we look back now on that early period of the Ramaphosa presidency, through the lens of this year's State of the Nation address, we arrive at one inescapable conclusion: that you, Mr. President, are somehow guilty of something even worse than the thing that you once accused Zuma of. For if President Zuma presided over 9 wasted years, you, sir, have presided over 5 disastrous years. If you thought that we lost some gains under Zuma, then under this administration, we have gained only losses. To quote one of the ANC's favorite thinkers, Karl Marx, history repeats itself, first as tragedy and then as farce. And that is exactly what you have wrought on South Africa, Mr. President. What happened under Zuma was a tragedy, but what has happened under your watch is a farce. The new dawn was a false dawn. Ramaphosa was a delusion. Your supposed commitment to sweeping economic reform was hollow. Unemployment has skyrocketed from 36% to 43% since Mr. Ramaphosa became president. Murder has increased by 20% over the same period, with 70 people killed in our country every single day. And as we all know, the rolling blackouts have now become a daily feature of permanent life under the Ramaphosa era. In fact, when he became president in 2018, South Africa spent a total of 6 days under load shedding. We thought back then that we had hit rock bottom. Since then, it has gone up every single year. First to 22 days, then to 35 days, then to 48 days, and last year it grew to 157 days. Sadly, it looks like 2023 is going to smash all these despicable records. Already this year, we've had over 1,000 hours of consecutive load shedding and counting. Mr. President, you may not have realized it, but this year's SONA was actually your last chance to lead the country onto a fundamentally different and better path. Last Thursday, you spoke to a nation that had arrived on the banks of a great river. On this side of the river, behind us, lay the treacherous road we have walked for the past 3 decades under the ANC. This is the socialist approach that the party embarked upon in 1997, when they formally adopted the policy of cadre deployment in order to, and I quote, control every lever of the state, unquote. His party believes that if the state controls the economy, it will be better than the people controlling the economy through open markets. They believe that the best way to deliver affordable, reliable energy supply for the nation is for the ANC to keep full control of South Africa's energy production. They believe that the best way to provide affordable rail transport for the nation is to keep full control of the railways with the ANC. They believe that the best way to manage a pandemic is to centralize all control in a national command center for them to decide who must be locked down and who mustn't, who can work and who cannot. And that is why this road is marked by stage 6 load shedding that reaches into the homes of every single South African every single day. It's marked by failing public services, by hospitals that cannot treat the sick, by trains that cannot run, and by a police service that can no longer keep us safe. These are no longer warnings about what will happen under the ANC's failed approach of centralized state control. This is now the daily reality of life in South Africa. Yet, as we stood on that riverbank last Thursday, we could look across to the other side. We saw a road extending to a fundamentally different and better future. But to get there, to turn our backs on decades of failed ANC policies, we first had to cross that great river, knowing that if we ever did get to the other side, the rushing torrent would ensure that we never, ever went backwards. On Thursday, a courageous leader who really cared about this nation would have had the head and the heart to admit that his party is wrong, that it is time to cross the Rubicon and embrace the opposite of socialism, which is power to the people. Now, make no mistake about it, South Africa was ready to cross that river. The men and women of this country are tired to their very core of the abuse that this ANC government has put them through. On last Thursday, we looked to you, sir, our president. We asked you to show us the way across the river, to unleash the power of the market to solve our electricity crisis, to get the incapable state out of the way of the incredible resourcefulness and creativity of the South African people, to put us on the road to socio-economic freedom that all of the world's prosperous nations have traveled. Because we don't want to rely on being resilient, we want to rely on being resourceful. We don't want to rely on meager social grants. We want to rely on our own jobs and businesses. We don't want to rely on your cadres. We want to rely on ourselves. And what did our leader do on that riverbank with the fate of our nation at stake? President Cyril Ramaphosa could not cross the Rubicon. Even as our nation pleaded for him to do the right thing and to take us onto this hopeful new path on the other side of the great Rubicon River, he couldn't take his eyes off the rapids. Even as the people of South Africa raised their voice in unison and frustration, all he could do was stare, terrified at the challenge. Instead of leading us across the Rubicon at the SONA of this year, Mr. Ramaphosa told us to turn around, to stay on this side of the riverbank, to double down on the same failed policies and the ANC approach of state control that has landed us in this terrible mess. Too weak, too indecisive, and too cowardly to take on the cadres, the compromised, and the vested interests in the political party that he leads. He turned his back on the Rubicon, he turned his back on us, and he turned his back on the only pathway that can save this country. Instead of getting the state out of the way of private electricity generation, he gave sweeping powers to the very same minister who abused those powers during the COVID crisis last year. Instead of deregulating and unleashing private sector electricity generation, he has centralized even more power in his super presidency. Instead of privatizing failed state-owned enterprises, he's created a massive new state-owned enterprise to provide fresh looting opportunities for the cadres. Instead of removing incompetent ministers of energy and public enterprises who block reform, he added yet another ministry to his already bloated cabinet. Mark this, by once again expanding and rather than shrinking the role of the state, the president has all but guaranteed that load shedding and all the other terrible crises visited on the people of South Africa by his government will only get worse. But a curious thing also happened last Thursday after the SONA. Mr. Ramaphosa clearly believed that the people would simply follow him, as he told us to turn back away from the Rubicon. He took for granted that people would just oblige and follow him back down the road to decay and decline. He has gravely miscalculated. Instead of following him, the people have stayed put, their eyes firmly transfixed on the promise of prosperity and hope on the opposite shore. The response to President Ramaphosa's SONA makes it clear that he has placed the party political interests of his own dying party ahead of the interests of the people of South Africa one too many times. By cowering from the Rubicon, he has lost the support of the country. And last Thursday will forever be remembered as the day that history overtook President Ramaphosa. By failing to listen to the cries of the people and doubling down on the failed ideologies that caused the suffering, the government has deserted us. But that does not mean that we can't still cross this great river. Yes, Tumamina was an empty slogan. Yes, the new dawn was a cruel mirage. And yes, Palapala showed us who he really is. And yes, we too wonder, as he said, why he is still doing the job. Gave us the real impression that this job is nothing but a side hustle for him. Because it is now quite clear that President Ramaphosa has failed. But you know what? Thanks to our democracy, we are never wholly dependent on one person. Our democracy offers us the way across the Rubicon. But there is a catch. Because now that the president has failed to lead us, we have to build a bridge across those raging waters ourselves at the next national elections. During his speech, the president claimed that we are defined by platitudes like hope and resilience. Wrong, Mr. President. We are a nation that should be defined by our commitment to a constitutional democracy. Because it is democracy that offers us a way out when all leaders have to offer is empty and hollow platitudes. And it's precisely for moments like this when the leader fails this nation that we have a democracy. If we want to get this country onto a better path before load shedding and the terrible policies and decline make it impossible to recover, it's time to use our democracy. And let there be no doubt, there is only one party that offers our country a realistic way across the Rubicon and onto a better path. While ANC-run municipalities collapse, there's only one party that is systematically fixing municipalities like Midvaal in Gauteng, Umgeni in KwaZulu-Natal, and Koga in the Eastern Cape. As cadre deployment and corruption rips apart the very fabric of the state, there's only one party that runs a clean and competent government in the Western Cape. And as power cuts get worse by the day, there is only one party working day and night in the province and the city to shield people from load shedding. That is why Cape Town became the first government in the country to start buying electricity directly from the open market, and with hundreds of megawatts of power still to come. That party, and the only party to save South Africa, is the Democratic Alliance. And so today, I stand before the people of our country not to offer you more idealistic dreams, bullet trains, smart cities, and empty talk of hope. We tried the idealism of the new dawn. It was a false dawn. So now we must try pragmatism. For that is what the DA offers our country. A credible, pragmatic, realistic set of solutions that will get our country working again and get us across that Rubicon once and for all. Where the ANC offers more of the same by assigning more power over our lives to the incapable state, the DA offers to give power back to the people where it belongs. Rather than seeking to control all the levers of power, the DA stands for something different. For liberal democracy, where power and economic decisions are decentralized into the hands of the people where it belongs. Accountability, non-racialism, commitment to the rule of law, and an inclusive social market economy that embraces the private and public sectors as partners, with zero tolerance for corruption. It is these timeless principles that have helped us turn around those municipalities and get this government in the Western Cape onto the path where it is now the best run provincial administration in the country. And by voting DA in 2024, we can bring this to bear at a national level. And let's be clear, the DA is the only game in town. Because anybody who seriously wants to cross that Rubicon must understand the binary. The latest polling shows that we are just 10 percentage points behind the ANC. They've dropped to 37%, we're on 27%, and we are closing that gap. Support for them has crashed. And no matter how anyone spins it, our country faces a binary. Next year, a national government will either be an ANC-led coalition or it'll be a DA-led coalition. We will either have a yellow coalition trapped on the wrong side of that riverbank, suffering misery and poverty, or we will have a blue coalition led by the DA that leads us across the Rubicon towards a better and brighter future. Honourable Speaker, the people of South Africa know what needs to be done to fix the country. They are ready to embrace private electricity generation, to privatise failed state-owned enterprises, to replace the terrible race-based policies that only empower the connected elite with non-racial policies that are targeted towards lifting poor people out of poverty and into opportunity. The people of our country are ready to cross the Rubicon. And the good news is we can still do it. We're just going to have to do it without President Ramaphosa. By uniting behind the DA next year, we can cross that Rubicon. We can leave behind the corrupt state-led paradigm for good. And South Africa, on the other side of the Rubicon, awaits a new country, where load shedding and corruption are a thing of the past, where quality education and healthcare are available to all, where millions of people can move out of poverty and into opportunity, and where all of us feel safe. And the truth is, the ANC is not going to lead us to that future. They are the past. The challenges we face are large, and yes, tough battles lie ahead of us. But outside this city hall and across the length and breadth of South Africa, there are millions of ordinary, hard-working citizens who are desperate for change. In the face of growing hardship inflicted by the government, these are the people who still get up every day to try and build a better life for them and their families. These are the people that we have alongside us. Together we can build a land of prosperity and opportunity, but we're going to need a government that's working for us, not against us. And the only way we can get there is by using our democracy next year to elect a DA government, A government with the courage to do what President Ramaphosa couldn't and cross that Rubicon. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now proceed. We will now proceed to the Minister in the Presidency.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Madam Speaker, Honorable Chair, President of the Republic, His Excellency Matamela Ramaphosa, Deputy President David Mabuza, colleagues in the executive and members of parliament, members of our provinces, members of the media, the people of South Africa. I guess the biggest challenge we are going to be confronted with, like one would have tried to say it last year, the difference again between facts and ideas. Where we are sitting, DA believes that ANC is obsessed with government control, where everything is done by government. It's only when you ignore facts to be able to think along that path. Already as we work now, for the first time, ESCOM, electricity supply in South Africa, the intervention program diversifies the various sources of energy. The fact that we have lifted the ceiling for private sector to generate capacity, that cannot be an obsession with the control of government. As we speak now, we are ensuring that there is a move to secure energy on emergency basis. Where we are sitting, as we speak now, there is, under the leadership of this president, acceleration of procurement of energy from renewables, from battery storage, using the battery storage, at the same time accessing gas. This is a diversified access to energy. Now, two, again to deal with facts. For anyone to believe what DA says, you must have not been able to see the intervention of the Vulindlela program that deals with economic reforms. And the intention of that program, already on the move, is to ensure that there's water availability. And also the president said here, we have reduced number of years for water license from multiple years to 90 days, so that private sector that applies for water license is able to access that license. Again, for you to say this government is obsessed with control of government, you must actually ignore those facts. Our program is clear with regard to interventions to unlock and deal with regulatory cost in as far as SMMEs are concerned. SMMEs, in the manner they are not ANC. It's a small, medium enterprise. These are small, medium enterprise. This is private sector. Those structures, Honorable Stacey, are not ANC. So that intervention, led by Sipho Nkosi, working together with the Department of Small Business, is unlocking the path for small business to participate. That cannot be viewed as ANC unless you are obsessed with the denial of facts. Again, an ANC government is a transformative government. If you want to say where DA leads, you've consciously said nothing about the state of Tshwane. You've consciously said nothing about the state of Johannesburg. You've consciously said nothing about the fact that one of your mayors have dropped the ball in the street because of no less than 100 billion unauthorized expenditure. That is a DA mayor. Again, when you say DA does well, it's because you're obsessed in a very blindfolded way with this metro, which has passed the test of racial exclusion. All black townships here in this metro, services are in a dire state. You go to Khayelitsha, you go to Philippi, you go to Guguletu. I have been in those townships, Honorable Stacey. The police stations are in a dire state. Everything, right? The point that I'm making to you is that Western Cape is a test of resilience of racial exclusion. You have not run, when you go to Joburg and you do juxtaposition, you do a contrast. When Joburg was run by the African National Congress, look at the financial ratios. You will never pass the test of financial management as the time Pakstow was running Joburg. You can go to Tshwane when Tshwane was run by Sputla Ramaphosa. You look at the financial ratios, you look at the focus, you look at the transformative program. There can be no comparison. You know what? It's because you deny facts, right? Fortunately, in 2024, our people are very clear about facts. They know that DA's future is based on a racially exclusive South Africa. However, having said that, now they know that in dealing with Eskom, as we sit here, there's a focus on six power stations. Resources and people are being deployed to make sure that those power stations, which have been found to be the main contributors to the load shedding, are attended to. As we speak now, there's a clear plan to reduce the debt burden on Eskom, to make sure that Eskom is able to release resources to improve on maintenance and ensure that transmission lines, those are facts. So, I think your fear, Mr. Honorable Stacey, if you look at the facts previously, look at the facts, where there's a survey about respect and trust of leaders, you don't feature in the same space with our president. Those are facts. They are not done by me. It's not my research. It's not my research. And this year's State of the Nation address by the president is historic in many ways. It signals many rays of possibilities and an imminent end to a rather devastating period, which was ushered in by COVID-19 catastrophic floods, serious case of corruption and maladministration that were laid bare at the State Capture Commission and an energy crisis. Indeed, as the president indicated, we have seen the resilience of South Africans and are constantly inspired by our belief that tomorrow will be better. As a result, we are witnessing the resurgence of the economy with our growth figures of third quarter 2022. Economy grew 2 quarters last year. Economy grew no less than 2 times from the labor survey. Net jobs, no less than 648,000. First labor survey, no less than 200,000. Those are facts. The declaration of the national state of disaster will assist in speedy resolution of energy supply, whilst minimizing its impact and contributing immensely in the rebuilding process. What are we doing here? As we deal with the causes of shortage of power and load shedding, at the same time, disaster seeks to intervene to make sure that we are at a pace and actually are able to prevail over the damage that load shedding is causing, at the same time deal with the impact. That's what the state of disaster is about. The sixth administration is in its penultimate year. In 2024, we'll go back to South Africans to seek a renewed mandate based on facts, and we are confident we will receive it because we are a government that is committed to improving the lives of each and every South African. That is based on facts, because we are a government that leaves no one behind. No one behind. We leave no Philippi behind. We leave no Guguletu behind. We leave no Black Township behind. We have placed public accountability at the center of building an ethical and a capable developmental state as set out in the NDP Vision 2030. To advance accountability, the President has appointed various commissions to deal with corruption. That is the river you cannot cross with us. The river that this President is leading us to cross is the river where fraudsters will not be allowed on the other side of the river. To restore public trust and to restore the credibility of the key institutions. Arrests have been demonstrated. Kingpins have appeared before court. As we speak now, multi-party discipline in ESCOM has arrested no less than 43 people. The Commission of Inquiry into Tax Administration and Governance at South African Revenue Service resulted in an overhaul of SARS and it being turned into one of the most efficient and well-performing public entities in this country. I know, Honorable Stazen, you cannot speak about the state of SARS, because to speak about the state of SARS, you must commend this government. The only way you can live, you can make sense, you must ignore those facts. Last year, SARS broke revenue collection records, collecting over 1.2 trillion in revenues after rescue under the leadership of this president. The Commission of Inquiry into Public Investment Corporation highlighted widespread abuses and governance failures at the PIC, and ongoing reforms are rebuilding in the institution. The National Prosecution Authority's investigating directorate has already begun preparing for trial cases emanating from the Commission of Inquiry into state capture, and last year several arrests were made. The IT has enrolled 32 matters involving 187 accused persons. 6 new matters involving 22 accused have been enrolled since the President tabled his response to the State Capture Commission in October. The Presidency continues to work closely with the Special Investigation Unit to improve the monitoring and coordination of referrals arising from the SIU investigation. These SIU interventions are bearing fruit, with some of the looted money being returned by multinationals and others. SIU investigations to COVID-19 procurement proclamation R22/2020 has to date resulted in 456 referrals to accounting officers for disciplinary actions. 63 officials have been found guilty. 476 referrals have been made to appear before the NPA for possible criminal investigation. Indeed, we will cross the river based on facts under the leadership of the ANC.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is going to be Honorable Malema. But honorable members, please note the following. Please note the following, that when Honorable Malema exceeds his 20 minutes, he will take from Honorable Mente's time, which is 12 minutes, and the table will keep us informed as it proceeds.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the leadership of the EFF and present here the officials.
Yes, Honorable Member, just a minute, Honorable Malima. Honorable Member, what's your point of order?
Speaker, on a point of order, I'm rising to find out what is Honorable Malema going to debate. He was not part of the SONA. There's nothing for him to debate. He must sit down.
No, unfortunately, Honorable Member, that's not the point of order. Please proceed, Honorable Malima.
I have no time for boys. We take this opportunity to acknowledge the leadership of the EFF present here, the officials, commissars from the CCT, PCT, RCT, and BCT members, the ground forces of the uncompromising movement watching from all over the country and the continent, including the African diaspora, importantly, the people of South Africa. We also acknowledge the leadership of the opposition parties present here in Parliament. Under normal circumstances, we're supposed to acknowledge a president and a speaker of Parliament. But for a very long time now, and particularly after the revelations of crimes in Palapala, we can boldly state that the South Africa does not have head of state and president. The one who was there before has renounced his constitutional privilege to continue as President of the Republic of South Africa. South Africa's constitution obliges anyone who is elected as a president to uphold, respect, and defend the constitution, and we can say boldly here that Mr. Ramaphosa has failed to uphold, respect, and defend the constitution. The misconduct of the Speaker on the 9th of February 2023 has also disqualified her as a legitimate Speaker of Parliament. The Speaker referred to members of this House as animals and violated the Constitution and the rules of the National Assembly when she allowed the police to invade Parliament and made it worse by calling on the security forces of South Africa to enter the chambers to intimidate peaceful members of Parliament who had their hands up, holding placards to protest against the sole director of Ntaba Nyoni Estate Pty Ltd, the company that owns Palapala Farm in Limpopo and unlawfully engaged in trade through currencies that cannot be used in South Africa. As a result, we have already submitted a motion of no confidence against Mrs. Nosiviwe Mapisa Nqakula, and we officially withdraw our honor we previously showed her. We also apologize for having showed her the honor when she evidently does not respect Parliament, does not respect the laws of this country, and can do everything to stay in office. Under no circumstances should a democratic Parliament be harassed and intimidated by the state security forces. The Constitutional Court has ruled that the police must stay away from lawmakers. It is the responsibility of the Speaker of Parliament to make sure that members of Parliament execute their responsibility without any fear or intimidation. But once you usher in police inside the chambers, you are effectively saying and allowing the tyrant to intimidate and even possibly prosecute those who disagree with the tyrant. The police must never be allowed inside the chamber because that is where the executive is held accountable. And those who are in power, if they do not have answers, may be tempted to use the security forces to intimidate those who are holding them accountable. I've known the president of the ANC longer than many of you, and he has known me when I was very young. Under no circumstances will he ever be threatened by me, or can he feel that his life is under threat because Julius is next to him. I've been next to him before. Many of you joined the ANC, including the second Deputy Secretary General of the ANC. So there is no need for you to behave like you can protect him against the people who sit with him in the chamber, and he does so without even having bodyguards, without being intimidated. The president himself said when he was playing golf the following day that he never felt intimidated, neither was he scared when he was in this parliament. So who are you saying? What are you saying? The people who use your own stomachs to think. The president has put you under the bus, those who said the president was under threat. He said himself was never under threat, neither was he intimidated. So what were the police doing here? They were here because the speaker has lost total control of this parliament, and that's why she must step down. We take this opportunity to pay tribute to fearless ground forces and volunteers who gathered 10 years ago in Uncle Tom's Hall and said economic freedom in our lifetime. The organization that you started 10 years ago is a force to be reckoned with and a fighting instrument in the hands of the people. Despite the fact that you, as ground forces of the EFF, defined the EFF to be, amongst other things, a protest movement, you also said we are a government in waiting. As we are talking here today, we are a government in the city of Johannesburg, where the EFF was founded. And the EFF is responsible for public safety and healthcare and social development. We can assure the people of Johannesburg that the crime in the economic capital of South Africa will go down, and our communities will receive better primary health care, which will be premised on massive public education on health care and health matters. Public safety is what we are going to ensure. We will demonstrate to the people of Johannesburg that we will reduce the levels of contact crime, murder, robberies, car hijackings, assault with intention to do grievous bodily harm in all crime spots of Johannesburg, particularly Hillbrow, GP, Central Johannesburg, Orange Farm, Alexander, Ivory Park, Honeydew, and Midrand. We will not tolerate criminals anywhere in the city of Johannesburg. Our energy services must understand
Honorable
what
Malema, just a minute. I see your hand is up, Honorable Member. Can I find out on what point are you rising?
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm rising on 14P. The honorable member on the podium have taken this very same house, have litigated the very same house, who have been schooled by him that the president have taken. No, you can howl. We have been schooled by that one. Listen, we have been schooled by that one. He told us that the president have taken parliament to court. Therefore, president cannot address this house. The very same thing have done it. He does not have any standing to address this house. He is a delinquent. He disrupts the house. Therefore, he must also not be allowed to address the house chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. But that's not a point of order, unfortunately. Please proceed, Honorable Member.
There is a difference between addressing and debating. Very thin line. I'm not addressing, I'm debating. We can assure the people of Johannesburg.
Honorable Malema, I see there's another hand. Please sit for a minute. Honorable Member, please start off by indicating on what point of order are you rising. On what point are you rising? On what point?
Chair, I'm raising on a point of order, quoting Article 14P, on the use of offensive languages by Honorable Mahoromeja Malema, who undermined the president and undermined the House by using offensive languages the last time. Now, before Mahoromeja continues to address, Mahoromeja must first apologize to the parliament, or he must not address, because we can't be addressed by Mahoromeja, who undermined this parliament.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Members, can I really make a plea that when we rise on a point of order, it should really be a point of order. I'm not going to really allow any other person to make a speech in the pretext of raising a point of order. Please desist from doing so. Honorable Malema.
Thank you very much. The health and social development, the primary principle and approach of the EFF to healthcare is based on primary healthcare and accessibility of clinics for 24 hours. Each and every ward in the city of Johannesburg must have healthcare facility, whether it is a hospital, clinic, poly or mobile clinic. What primary healthcare means is that our nurses and departments of health as a whole must not wait for patients to come to them only when they are terminally ill and require expensive and sophisticated healthcare operations. Primary healthcare means that the Department of Health must perpetually and permanently raise awareness and conduct massive public education of essential preventative health issues confronting our communities. Our health department will work with schools, community forums, and community-based organizations to publicly educate our people on preventative healthcare measures. We will make sure that all the acting positions, both in public safety and in health and social development in Johannesburg, are filled so that we can give our people a proper service. The EFF remains the only dependable and reliable weapon for the total liberation of the working class and Africans here in South Africa, the African continent, and the African diaspora. Throughout the year, we'll be celebrating the 10 years existence of the EFF and preparing for a journey ahead. We take this opportunity to say to the people of South Africa, what you are listening to is not a real state of the nation, it's a hearsay. Our country is in the middle of several man-made crises. The man who's currently at the center of South Africa's crisis is a full-time businessman, animals trader, possibly a puppet of both the domestic and global capitalist interest, who has said that the job of president for him is a part-time job, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. Let us start from the bottom. Despite many promises of universal access to early childhood development, millions of particularly black children in villages and townships have no access to early childhood development. What this means is that children of white people are born with strategic advantage and privilege over black children because white people's children start education before even turn 2 years old, while black children are only given access to education at the age of 5 and 6. And even when they go to school, these schools do not have the advanced technologies and teaching support system available for white children. This year will mark exactly 29 years since the first inclusive elections, yet we still have primary and secondary schools that use pit toilets, and we still have schools without electricity, without water, without access to basic necessities. The reality is that public education in South Africa has collapsed and has opened space for extremely expensive private schools which majority of our people cannot afford and cannot reach. In the year 2022, almost 1 million students wrote their senior certificate examination, matric, and yet there are less than 200,000 spaces available in universities of technology and universities because no one amongst those who are in government planned for the future of these students. In actual fact, there's been more than 4 million applications into institutions of higher learning when the spaces available are less than 200,000. Despite the former president of the ANC announcing fee-free higher education in 2019, there's still no free decolonized education in South Africa. Academically deserving yet poor students are being turned away from institutions of higher learning because of lack of money. Those who protest against fees are being shot and killed with no consequences, like fighter Madonsela was killed at the Durban University of Technology. There is still a shortage of more than 500,000 beds for students at TVET colleges, University of Technology and universities, and without decent and safe accommodations, students are subjected to high levels of crime, abuse, and often taken advantage of by different people. The South African government has neglected its obligation to create a safe and conducive teaching and learning environment for students. Those who sacrifice and go through endurance of finishing their students are often thrown into a very large section of the unemployment in South Africa. More than 12 million capable South Africans who are looking for jobs, including those who are discouraged, cannot find jobs anywhere because there is no meaningful program to create jobs for young people. Unemployment in South Africa is too high, and as if that is not enough, the South African Post Office has announced that it will be worsening the crisis of unemployment through retrenchment of more than 6,000 workers. The fact is that South Africa currently has close to 20 million people who are dependent on social grant, and it's not a cause for celebration, particularly when viewed from the fact that even these social grants do not eliminate poverty. There is absolutely no child and definitely no adult who can survive and thrive with $350 or $450 per month, whereas in a country with rising costs of living. Not even the dogs of the presiding president survives on $450 per month. The form of social assistance provided by government since 1994 has not been impactful in reducing poverty because the current government is incapable of creating jobs and taking our people out of poverty. Landlessness is still the biggest challenge confronting our people, and our attempts as the EFF to resolve the land question was undermined by the puppets of neocolonialism and imperialism. We are here today with still working under a constitution that protects the rights of stolen property because the land in the ownership and control of colonial settlers and their descendants is stolen land, and no amount of lies will hide the fact that settlers are in possession of stolen goods. In the middle of landlessness, joblessness, and many crises that define South Africa, we have high levels of crime which are perpetuated by the fact that we have an incapable and unwilling police minister who has always shown up after the crimes and only pose for cameras. This leader has demonstrated that he has got nothing to offer except to project himself as a modern-day model. He is indeed a certified fool without any alternative to reducing crime in South Africa. We said before that the current leadership of the police is incapable, and we are firmly called for the removal of some of these imposters, and our cries fell on deaf ears.
Let's see the point of order, listen to the point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The member in the podium has used an offensive language by referring to the minister as an FOON. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Malema.
He didn't quote the rule. He didn't quote the rule, Chair.
No, never mind the quoting. The point is that
I can't hear you, Chair. Switch on. They wrote for you. Switch on.
Honorable, please behave.
I can't hear.
Please behave.
But I said I can't hear.
Please behave.
I can't hear.
Now, Honorable Malema, I'm calling upon you to withdraw the use of an offensive word, and that word is fool.
I withdraw, Chair.
Thank you
We
very
have
much.
on several occasions called on the President to release the clever minister who has always shown up for cameras all the time there is a crime scene with an intention of arresting wrong people and mess up the crime scene and mess up the case. Today we speak, crime has gone very high in South Africa in all respect. We don't even want to talk about GBV. We don't want to talk about cash in transit haste. We don't want to talk about contact crime because the leadership of the police is in cahoots with the criminals. The only way we can be defeated in dealing with crime is only when the leadership of the police is working with criminals. The leadership of the police works with drug lords. The leadership of the police works with Nkabis. The leadership of the police is in the payroll of hitmen and women of this country. The leadership of the police actually planned the assassination of our deputy president, a matter that we brought to the attention of the president, that the minister was involved in the plot of killing the deputy president of the EFF. This is a matter that has been reported
Honorable
and has
Malema,
been confirmed.
Honorable Malema, please take your seat. Honorable Khatebe, on what point are you rising?
Chairperson, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The member has cast aspersions on the minister without substantiating the fact.
Yes.
No, Rule 12 is very clear. Rule 12, Chair, is very clear that the rules of the NA applies in the joint sitting when the member of the NA is on the platform. So the member violated Rule 85 of the rules of NA. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Malema, I'm sure by now you know that if you are to make an allegation such as the one that we have made now, you need to have a substantive motion put in front of the House so that the matter can be thoroughly debated, considered and debated. So I'm asking you again to withdraw.
I withdraw, Chair.
Thank you very much.
When the daughter of our former Secretary General was killed, it is the police of South Africa who went to the suspect and said to the suspect, put the name of Floyd Shivambu, that you worked with Floyd Shivambu to assassinate.
Honorable Malema, just a minute. Honorable member, on what point are you rising?
Thank you so much, House Chair. I'm rising on a point of privilege. House Chair, I want to address you and ask you a question on privilege. And the question is that the rule says when a member is kicked out of the House for the duration of the debate, that member may not continue in the same debate. Now the SONA has resuming, has not adjourned. Now the same member was kicked out of the sitting in the same debate. So I want to ask you, you can come back later and make a ruling around it. The question is that, is the member per the rules allowed to continue and participate in the debate when he was moved out of the debate? Thank you.
Unfortunately, Honorable Member, that rule is not applicable. So the member has the right to participate in the proceedings. But issues such as the ones that you are raising can be pursued in the Joint Rules Committee and in other related parliamentary structures. Thank you very much. Please, Honorable Malema, please proceed.
Thank you very much. The Deputy President of the EFF has been targeted by the leadership of the police, which was willing to connive with suspects and persuaded the suspects to put the name of the Deputy President of the EFF in the murder of our former Secretary General's daughter. When they refused after being beaten, money has been offered to them to implicate the Deputy President of the EFF in the murder of our own daughter. Why do they do this? It is only known to them. But I'm using this example to demonstrate to you that the leadership of the police is working with criminals. And for as long as the leadership of the police is working with criminals, we will never defeat crime in this country. It is the responsibility of the so-called president to remove Honorable Begitele with immediate effect, because he has failed the people of South Africa. What happened to our artist, DJ Somebody, aka, will never get to know, because the police and higher echelons of the police are in cahoots with the criminal syndicate. We cannot fight crime well led by criminals. We must first get rid of criminals in order to defeat crime. May AKA's soul rest in peace and haunt all of these people who have made it so difficult for him to live long.
Honorable Malema, don't you really think that it should be all the members, all the honorable members, all the honorable members. Now, honorable members, don't you think it would be advisable that when you have to make such serious allegations, we stick to what the rules of Parliament provides for? In other words, that you come here with a motion and the motion gets debated so that indeed all the issues that you are related get considered and engaged by members of Parliament.
Chair, I'm debating. When we stand up during the president's speech, we are told you raise that point in debate. When we raise the point in debate, something else is being said. It means we'll never contribute in this house. I'm not saying anything against anyone. I'm just telling you the fact that we ought to fight criminality in the police. And if the shoe fit, wear it, because it's the truth. Now you have established Minister of Electricity. We hope to see Minister of Trains. We hope to see Minister of Flights. We hope to see Minister of Dinner. We hope to see Minister of Potholes. We hope to see Minister of GBV. Because the reality is that, Mr. President, nothing is working under you. You are a man on top and doing nothing. And that is very irresponsible of a man to be on top and do nothing. The reality of the situation is that you went against the advice we gave you when you started as a president, that listen to your own organization. Your own organization has now said, put the ESCOM under energy. What did you do? You went to a separate kitchen cabinet and created a Ministry of Electricity, which doesn't derive from the resolutions of your own organization. A clear confirmation that there is a kitchen cabinet that exists in Stellenbosch and that dictates the direction this country must take. If you agree that ESCOM has failed to discharge its responsibility, ESCOM has always had a minister, and that is a Minister of Public Enterprise. And if we need a separate minister, it means that minister has failed. Why are you so scared to remove an incompetent minister who has failed and collapsed everything in the state-owned, under a state-owned enterprise? It can't be, even if you are friends, you ought to have an honest discussion amongst yourself and say, my brother, there is nothing I can do anymore. I need someone capable to come and rescue Dinel, to come and rescue Transnet, to come and rescue SAA, because ESCOM and the rest have collapsed under Honorable Pravin Gordhan. I don't know le Musabani or Honorable Pravin Gordhan. I don't know if he's got a list of impimpis or sellouts of during apartheid, the way you are so scared of him. But he knows and his cohorts that some of us are not scared of him. They've tried it before and we defeated them and will defeat them again. Fellow South Africans, nothing is working in this country. You were promised all manner of things when President Zuma was removed. Things are worse. Things will get worse. Because the president said that this electricity crisis is not going to be resolved in the nearest future, at least for 2 years. When he says 2 years, he means 5 years, or even more than that. It is up to you, South Africa, if you want to declare that enough is enough. We must make sure that on the 20th of March, we remove this puppet government from power. We must make sure that on the 20th of March, we demand the resignation of Mr. Ramaphosa. We must make sure that on the 20th of March, we demand the stopping of crime. We demand that the money launderer must be removed from office. We demand that crime in South Africa must be something of the past. If you want employment and you are sitting at home in darkness without a hope, your future is in the EFF. Join the shutdown on the 20th of March when we bring South Africa to a standstill. Only cowards who are in the pockets of capital will be scared to come to the streets on the 20th of March. We tried here in Parliament, they used their majority to defend criminality. We tried in the court, they used the judiciary to defend their criminality. We are left with no option. The streets are calling our names. The picket lines are calling our names. And all South Africans, we look forward to seeing you on the 20th of March, 2023. Only the fearless will be on the streets and holding this puppet government accountable. We are not scared. Only Amagwala will go and beg the president that he must not resign. But all those who know that the president did nothing for this country, including himself, will encourage him to resign, because the president had already resigned. And once you have resigned and you are convinced by affection to stay, you must know that it is only the body that remains there. The conscience is gone, because the conscience is the one that wrote a letter. No amount of factionalism can bring back that conscience. I don't know what the deputy president, the former deputy president, is doing here. He allows them to use him against Paul Mashatile, but he knows that these people don't want him. They don't want you. Stop pretending that they want you. And former deputy president Didi Mabuza, please join the streets on the 20th of March in Mpumalanga. All of us, let's go on the streets on the 20th of March. Patria muerte! Patria muerte! Patria muerte! Thank you very much.
Honourable members, maybe we should proceed. We note that when asked to take the seat, Honorable Malema just ignored the presiding officer. We note that. We note it because we may have to follow it up. Thank you very much, Honorable Gwede Mandash. Yeah, on what point are you raising, Floyd? Honorable Floyd. On what point are you raising?
I'm raising Amos on the point of order. The point of order that I'm raising on is that the tradition and practice of this parliament is that as a presiding officer, when the speaker is on the platform, you only intervene when your attention is brought to violation of the rules. On several occasions, when the commander-in-chief was giving direction there, you intervened there without anyone having brought attention to any violation of the rules. And there was not even violation of any rules. Because there's nothing wrong with speaking about the criminals in the police service. And he never mentioned anyone by name. Those who know, they know who that person is. But he kept on interrupting him when he was giving direction as to what must happen moving forward. That is unacceptable of you as the presiding officer today. And you must consider shifting there if you are incapable of handling this house appropriately, because what they're doing is unacceptable and will never allow that to continue in the manner that we've been doing thus far.
I must say that that is indeed a long speech. And honorable members, I think we should, all of us should ensure that the business of the house is properly run, and that indeed, as presiding officers, we have the overall responsibility of being fair and running the business in such a manner that no view is seen to be suppressed and undermined. But if we are to succeed in ensuring proper decorum of the house and the dignity of the house, all of us must take responsibility. All of us must behave and working in a way that seeks to build and ensure that we do what we're supposed to be doing. So I'll proceed and ask Honorable Mantashe to deliver his address.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, Honorable Amos Masondo, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Nosviwe Mapisa Ngakula, Deputy Speaker Lichisa Tsinodi, Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP Sylvia Lucas, His Excellency, the President of the Republic, Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, Deputy President, His Excellency, David Dabede Mabuza, Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, Honorable Members present here, invited guests to this gathering today. In the State of the Nation address, President Cyril Ramaphosa identified load shedding as a crisis facing our country, which is solvable. He declared it as a crisis and he said it is solvable. And he made two commitments to confront this crisis. The first one was to declare a state of disaster so that there should be no obstacles or limitation in addressing it. Secondly, he announced that he will appoint a Minister of Electricity in his office to focus on this crisis. Many people ask what this appointment means, and we characterize it as actually an approach that can be defined as project management approach in dealing with the crisis. Some people in the media say, when we characterize it as a project management approach, we are reducing this ministry and its authority. I think something called school will help them understand project management as not being reductionist. All it is emphasizing urgency of execution and delivery of the project on time. One must understand that when you talk of project management approach, you mean there will be clear time frame, the beginning and the end of the project, and there will be clear milestones, and there will be a clear critical path that you should not deviate from. Now, therefore, this is not reductionist. It is communicating sense of agency and the desire to resolve this, because we don't have time to wait for 24 months to resolve load shedding. That is how serious the president takes this crisis. And unfortunately, we have political parties that never want to be involved in finding solutions of any crisis. They believe that opposition means just opposing anything that is tabled by the ANC and its government. That is a mistake. Parties in parliament should contribute to finding solutions to problems and crises. Now, in January 2023, the leader of the Democratic Alliance made a bold statement that will support declaration of the state of disaster on the emergency and the energy crisis. That was the 31st of January. Then when the state of disaster was declared on the 9th of February, the same leader of the Democratic Alliance came back and said, we'll take the government to court for declaring a state of disaster. Now, when you have the main opposition party talking from both sides of the mouth, we have a bigger crisis as a country. Now, this means talking from both sides of the mouth, Honorable Steenhuisen, is not helpful to society. The DA must throw ideas. We use those ideas to get solutions. I don't want to refer to the EFF and ATM, Honorable Malema, because you opted out of the State of the Nation address. Went left and you are not here. You opted out. Now, you know, EFF even does something very, very unthinkable. In a country where a prime minister was assassinated in the House of Parliament, they stormed the stage. It's unthinkable. No, but I'm leaving this to the president to finalize. I'm leaving the criminal aspect to the Minister of Police to connect. I refer to a crisis that is solvable because there are immediate actions that government can take in addressing the short-term and medium term. This includes improving ESCOM's energy availability factor through maintenance and servicing existing power stations. That means the current coal power station must operate optimally. We procure emergency power, we purchase electricity from neighboring countries, and we improve skills capacity of ESCOM. And those four interventions will help us. They will help us focus.
Honorable Mandash, just a minute. Honorable Josie, on what point are you standing?
A point of order.
Yes, okay, let's hear it.
Honorable Mantashe says his prime minister was assassinated. And I know only of one prime minister, that's Verwoerd. Are you saying Verwoerd was your minister?
No, I didn't say that.
I've been very suspicious that you were part of apartheid. Well, apartheid.
Honorable Josie.
You just confirmed calling Verwoerd your prime minister.
Honorable Josie, that's not a point of order. I'm sure you know that. Honorable members, can I make a plea once again? Please do not abuse the point of order and give us speeches and so on. Please don't do that. Proceed, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. So our main focus on improving electricity availability factor should focus on the following power stations. If you look at a power station like Tutuga, which is having EAF of 33.3%, Kendall 45.5%, Duva 20.7%, Majuba 44.3%, Kusile 24.7%, and Mata 42.8%. Those 6 power stations deprive the country of more than 50% of availability factor, and therefore this focus minister will have to focus on those power stations to give us energy and resolve load shedding. The government continues to develop generation capacity because generation capacity, as we develop it, we're focusing on the long-term sustainable energy security of supply. And that's why, for example, we must be reminded that 2,200 and 500 megawatts of renewable energy was procured under bid window 4, on which we were 2,120 and 30 megawatts are connected to the grid, providing us with much needed electricity. 2,583 megawatts have been procured under bid window 5, with 1,759 megawatts are under construction. Under bid window 6, we procured 4,200 megawatts. Only 1,000 could be declared because of the grid problem. So as we deal with the problem of the current coal generators, we must equally urgently deal with strengthening of the transmission. So my submission, therefore, is that this minister, who is appointed to focus on electricity, which is not something strange, by the way. Egypt has a minister of electricity. Bahrain has, Kuwait has, New Zealand had for a long period of time. It has stopped that now. And so it's not something new. Let's focus on providing electricity in the country. Let me explain that as a department, Mineral Resources and Energy, we issue RFPs very soon on 513 megawatts battery storage, 3,000 megawatts on gas, and we're going to issue bid window 7, which is going to go up to 5,000 megawatts. Let me leave energy and use the remaining 5 minutes on mining. South African mining sector contributes 8% to the gross domestic product, and we're aiming it to contribute 12%. This low performance is largely attributed to global increase of energy prices because of the continued geopolitical dynamics, the ongoing power disruptions, which is load shedding, logistic bottlenecks on our rail and ports, and crime. Now, as a result, mineral production contracted by 9% in 2022. And that contraction was actually backed as a trend by one company called Goldfields, because much earlier it applied to establish its own solar plant to substitute Eskom energy in some terms. That's why Goldfields grew by 10%. So that is a pointer to a number of mines that if you take initiative, you will save the economy. And again, I think it is quite important that NERSA has approved registration of 406 megawatts, and the total of this registered generation is 1,664 megawatts. Among the generators is Seriti, which is a mining company, which will begin the construction of 155 megawatts with a project in Mpumalanga, and Exaro will construct 70 megawatts, 70, of solar plant. And that is a trend that mining companies are following to mitigate the crisis of load shedding. We welcome the establishment of a joint structure between Transnet and the Mineral Council South Africa to accelerate improvement of our rail and port infrastructure, because those bottlenecks deprive South Africa of taking advantage of good prices of commodities and leave the high demand, which is not permanent. And therefore, it is important for us to attend to these problems. And I must say, there was a lot of interest shown by investors in the exploration in 2023 mining in Daba. And if we pay and invest enough in exploration, mining has a future. That's where it all begins. And we will work in this interest so that these investments are realized. Furthermore, there is an interest in minerals of the future, which will include your lithium, which we have discovered massive deposits in the Free State of rare earth minerals in the Northern Cape, copper, nickel, and many others. And these minerals, which our country is endowed with, are essential for the development of low carbon economy that we're looking forward to. The DMRE is also seized with addressing the backlog of prospecting and mining applications. We have reduced that backlog by 42% over the last 18 months. The procurement of the customer's cadastral system is also quite important. It's underway, and I will hope that by end of February this year, end of this month, it will be out and we'll be having it sooner. Let me conclude by expressing our appreciation following the reduction of mining industry fatalities. I know very few people pay attention to this. Actually, 2022 registered the lowest number of fatalities in the mining industry in history. 49 is the number. Now, in a country that has been full of disasters, you can look into the Coldbrook disaster, 435 workers die in one day. Your Kinross disaster, 177 miners die. Your Vaal Reef disaster, your Sendelina disaster. When you reduce fatality in the mining industry to 49, it's a progress towards zero harm in the sector. I must also put the point that this is an improvement to a record that was set in 2019 of 51 fatalities. Over the last 3 years, we never registered any disaster. Our definition of a disaster is when one accident actually kills 5 or more people. So over the last 4 years, we have not had a disaster in the mining industry. And therefore, the improvement is worth acknowledging, but every life lost is one life more. So we should not kill mine workers. Mine workers must go to work, come back alive, and be themselves. Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker.